question of why the electrical code doesn't specify general installation heights for ceiling fans is a common one. It's true that the code addresses ceiling fan installations in specific locations such as over pools, spas, and near bath and shower areas, but it remains silent on a minimum height for general installations. To understand this, we need to consider the purpose and scope of the electrical code itself. The electrical code, primarily concerned with safety, focuses on preventing electrical shock and fire hazards. It outlines requirements for wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and equipment installation to minimize these risks. When it comes to ceiling fans, the code's primary concern is the potential for electrical hazards associated with their installation and operation in damp or wet locations or locations where they could come in contact with conductive surfaces or standing water. In these situations, the risk of electrical shock is significantly increased. Therefore, the code provides specific guidelines to ensure that ceiling fans installed in these areas are appropriately rated for the environment, properly grounded, and installed with suitable clearances from water sources. However, the code does not typically dictate specific mechanical requirements that are not directly related to electrical safety. The height at which a ceiling fan is installed, while certainly a safety consideration from a mechanical perspective, primarily addresses the risk of physical contact with the rotating blades. This type of hazard is generally considered a mechanical hazard rather than an electrical one. Mechanical hazards are often addressed by other codes and standards, such as building codes or occupational safety regulations, or are left to the discretion of the installer and the homeowner. It's important to note that while the electrical code may not specify a minimum installation height, other organizations and manufacturers do provide recommendations. For example, ceiling fan manufacturers typically include installation instructions that specify a minimum distance between the blades and the floor. These recommendations are based on safety considerations and are designed to prevent accidental contact with the blades. Building codes may also address ceiling fan installation heights, particularly in commercial or public spaces. These codes may specify minimum clearances to ensure the safety of occupant. In the absence of specific code requirements, it's crucial for installers to exercise good judgment and follow best practices when installing ceiling fans. This includes considering the height of the ceiling, the size of the room, and the potential for contact with the blades. In general, a minimum clearance of 7 feet from the floor to the fan blades is recommended to provide adequate headroom and reduce the risk of accidental contact. In areas with low ceilings, it may be necessary to use a flush mount fan or a fan with shorter blades to maintain a safe clearance. It's also important to consider the potential for tall individuals or objects to come into contact with the blades. In areas where this is a concern, a higher installation height may be necessary. When installing a ceiling fan, it's essential to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. These instructions will provide specific guidance on installation procedures, wiring requirements, and safety precautions. It's also important to ensure that the fan is properly supported and that the mounting hardware is appropriate for the ceiling structure. If you are unsure about any aspect of the installation, it's best to consult with a qualified electrician or contractor. Another consideration is the potential for the ceiling fan to interfere with other fixtures or equipment in the room. For example, a ceiling fan should not be installed too close to a light fixture or a sprinkler head. It's also important to ensure that the fan blades do not obstruct any doorways or windows. In addition to the installation height, there are other safety considerations to keep in mind when installing a ceiling fan. Firstly, it's important to ensure that the fan is properly grounded to prevent electrical shock. The grounding wire should be connected to a grounded circuit conductor or a grounding electrode system. Secondly, the fan should be wired correctly to prevent overheating or electrical faults. The wiring should be done in accordance with the electrical code and the manufacturer's instructions. Thirdly, the fan should be inspected regularly for any signs of damage or wear. Loose blades, frayed wires, or a wobbling fan can be a safety hazard. If any problems are detected, the fan should be repaired or replaced immediately. Ultimately, while the electrical code may not specify general installation heights for ceiling fans, safety should always be the top priority. By following best practices, adhering to manufacturer's instructions, and considering the specific circumstances of each installation, you can ensure that ceiling fans are installed safely and effectively. Remember that even if the code doesn't mandate a specific height, the responsibility for ensuring a safe installation rests with the installer and the homeowner. If there are concerns about mechanical safety, it might be suitable to follow other local codes or guidelines that could address those points. Electrical codes are not designed to deal with mechanical injuries, so keeping that in mind can help one to understand why the code would not mention ceiling fan height. The primary focus for ceiling fans is electrical safety, grounding, and correct wire sizing. Also, wet locations and areas that may contain water can be dangerous from electrocution, and the electrical code is more concerned with that aspect. In dry areas, it becomes more of a mechanical consideration. It is also worth noting that the code isn't static. As technology and installation practices evolve, so too does the code. It is subject to regular review and updates to address emerging safety concerns and adapt to new technologies. The absence of specific installation height requirements for ceiling fans may be revisited in future editions of the code if it is determined that such requirements are necessary to enhance safety. Until then, it is imperative for installers and homeowners to remain vigilant and prioritize safety when installing ceiling fans.